With this here, this ain't about being flashy. This is game day, son. It's only about one thing. Getting that W. That's the only thing that matters right now. Boy, are you ready? The past is the past, you know? It's a new day, bro. My day. Gotta do it now.
Hey guys, Blindside Fantasy Football Podcast back. Going to preview some Week 8 games here, go over the Thursday night game last night, and then as always, right before the weekend, go over some bold predictions. So let's jump right in. Panthers-Bucks. You know, we talked about this earlier in the week, but, I mean, this is kind of what Cam does. You know, starts off slow, finishes strong. 221 yards passing last night, 2 passing touchdowns, 50 yards rushing touchdown. For the next 5 games, though, up against top 12 defenses, pass defenses. What do you guys think? This is going to be tough sledding ahead for Cam. You think this was just a game where he kind of broke out a little bit, or do you think we're going to see more of the old Cam Newton here?
I mean, I've always been a fan of Cam. He can just do it in so many ways. And last night was just a perfect example of everything he can do against a decent defense. Obviously, things are floundering there in Tampa Bay. But yeah, I think the sledding's going to be good going forward. Definitely a fan of Cam. If you have him, I think you're happy to have him as a quarterback on your fantasy team.
I like Cam too, but I'm more worried about that Tampa Bay defense after what they let Foles do to him, and then Newton. I mean, I don't think it's a testament to Newton as much as it is a slap in the face to Tampa Bay. But I guess we'll see with this tough schedule coming up. I mean, obviously he's a top 6, top 7 quarterback the rest of the way, so you're going to be starting.
Yeah, he's right now the number 12 ranked fantasy quarterback, so I think that's going to start moving up hopefully these next few weeks. They are tough matchups, but I think he'll kind of push through them. Interesting to note, though, that Mike Tolbert, not D'Angelo Williams, gets to start in this game for Carolina. Finishes with more touches, too. 7 for 35 rushing, 4 for 29 receiving, and another receiving touchdown. 4 of the last 5 games now he's had a touchdown. You guys think, 10-team, 12-team leagues, is he a flex guy now?
I don't think so. With Jonathan Stewart coming back next week, I think that really muddies the waters for these running backs, both Tolbert and Williams there in Carolina. And I think it's actually going to hurt Tolbert more of those two, just because I think Stewart's more likely to nab a goal line carry here and there, which is something that D'Angelo certainly doesn't do. So I think you had a nice run with him, but something you're going to have to kind of wait to see what happens next week. I mean, if you're in a tough situation, he's certainly a goal line guy. You can throw him in and hope for that. But I just want to see 1 week with all of them there. Let's just see what's going to happen, and maybe even 2 weeks.
I agree. I mean, D'Angelo did get the touchdown last night. It finally found the end zone, so that is encouraging. But going forward, this is one of the most uncertain backfields in the NFL right now. So, as a fantasy owner, I don't want any part of this. This week, you at least know you're not going to have Stewart back, so you at least know it's going to look somewhat what it looked like in weeks past. But yeah, I'm a little nervous for everybody in this backfield. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be a 3-headed monster, and then obviously Cam Newton getting his rushing touchdowns from time to time. So it's going to be almost a 4-headed monster back there in the running game. But Tampa Bay side, since Mike Glennon took over in Week 4 as the starter, Vincent Jackson actually leads the NFL in targets, and even has 14 more than anyone else. That's through 4 games because obviously I counted last night's game, but they did have a bye week in the middle there. So 14 more targets than anybody else. 2nd in the NFL in receptions, 8th in total yards and receiving yards, tied for 1st in touchdowns, and 3rd in fantasy points and standard scoring, 5th in PPR leagues. So, I'm starting to buy into it. He's a top 5 wide receiver with Mike Glennon in there. What do you guys think?
Rob, take this one. I know you just traded for him, so I'm sure you're loving it.
Yeah, I am. And this past Thursday night, not the best of those last 4 weeks. Obviously, he took advantage of a Philadelphia and Atlanta defense that's weak at this point. But Carolina, much better defense, still went 5 for 79. I don't think he's a top 5 guy rest of the season. I do love Glennon. I think he's throwing to him mostly because he's just trying to figure out this offense. And I think, he knows Jackson is this guy, his number 1 guy, so that's where the targets are going. I wrote an article early in the year about targets and bell cow wideouts, and I think Jackson's definitely going to be one. I think he might be top 5 rest of the season targets, but in terms of production, I think he's just outside that top 5.
I think I agree with you, Rob. Let's see, who do I want over him? I have Calvin, Dez, probably. I'm thinking Wes Welker. Am I forgetting somebody? Help me out. AJ Green. Yeah, I mean he's right in that range for me, 5'6". I mean, Glennon just loves him, and you know what? The first
and Brandon Marshall and
It's right around the 6'7" range for me. The thing is even the first week Glennon was there, Vincent wasn't right, but he got 11 targets. It was a bad game as far as numbers, but Glennon, like you said, Rob, he knows he's the man there. When you're a quarterback who's young, throw it to the guy that's going to come down with it a lot of the time. I mean, he just keeps going his way, so loving Vincent Jackson a lot more than I was expecting out of him this year.
Yeah, even Glennon himself has been performing fairly well. Over 15 fantasy points in the last 3 weeks, so he's definitely getting it done as a quarterback, throwing the ball a ton.
Hey, did you see the stat, Marcus, about attempts in the first 3 games of his career last night?
Yep, most out of any quarterback. I was just about to say that, and through the first 3 games. And I think last night he even finished with 51 attempts. So even more last night. I'm pretty sure he now holds the record for the most attempts through the first 4 games of a starter's career. Real quick, though, on the Bucs side, a source close to the Bucs saying that Doug Martin will miss 2 to 8 weeks. So thanks for clarifying that. I mean, it's so unnewsworthy. Any one of us could have said that and known that. I found that kind of funny that that's being leaked out of the Buccaneers camp. Sounds like they have no idea as well when he'll be back. But let's jump into previewing some of these games. Cowboys, Lions. Reggie Bush sat out of practice today with a quad injury. I think if he's active, you're still starting him, but something to keep an eye on just to make sure it doesn't act up or flare up on him right before the game. Kind of tame your expectations for him a little bit. But sounds like DeMarco Murray is going to be back for this one. After 35 touches in the last 2 games for Joseph Randle, do you think he just goes away, or is he part of this offense moving forward?
I'd be guessing because I think a lot of it has to do with how healthy DeMarco is. I had heard some talk about how the organization isn't sure if DeMarco is going to be the guy of the future. That seems to have died down. I think he's going to go back to a number 2 role. He's going to be a guy who gets work to spell DeMarco. Maybe not this week. He might see a little more time just because it's his first week back for DeMarco. But it'll be interesting. I just don't know how healthy DeMarco is really going to be. You're going to see that come first 2 or 3 drives.
Yeah, definitely. I think he goes away. I think he has a little bit of relevance this week, maybe in a desperate flex play, but I think over the course of the season, definitely he's going to go away. But he's worth holding on to because, even though DeMarco is coming back from this injury, his injury history suggests that another injury could be right around the corner. So I'd still maybe hold on to him in deeper leagues, but yeah, I definitely think he's losing that starting appeal.
Yeah,
there's another guy too, Marcus, coming back, Lance Dunbar, who a lot of people thought was ahead of Randall on the depth chart. Obviously, he's had some injuries, so he's coming back this week as well. Your guess is as good as mine what the touches are going to be like this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I think DeMarco comes back and kind of gets his lion's share back. I think these guys will each kind of pick up a few carries here and there, but nothing too big. I think they want to get DeMarco back into that full workload again. This game, I normally would say I think it's going to be a shootout between these two high-powered offenses, but and terrible defenses. But last 2 weeks I've said that against the Cowboys. It hasn't happened, so I don't think I should go out on a limb and say it on this one. Cowboys defense, despite being the 3rd worst against opposing quarterbacks, hasn't allowed a passing touchdown in 2 straight games. So they've kind of been locking it up lately in the passing game, haven't quite been allowing the big games that they had been in the past. Browns, Chiefs, Cleveland, meet your new starting quarterback, Jason Campbell. Real quick, I just want to point out, since 2008, Campbell has attempted over 10% of his passes at least 20 yards downfield. He's thrown at least 20 yards downfield on 10% of his passes. Comes out to about 3 a game. So Josh Gordon, I think he's going to be obviously just fine with Jason Campbell as his quarterback. Jordan Cameron, on the other hand, averaging just barely 50 yards per game these last 3 games, faces a Chiefs defense that's number 1 versus opposing tight ends, and hasn't allowed over 45 receiving yards or a touchdown to any tight end this year. On average, they're only allowing 30 yards per game to tight ends. So not looking good for Jordan Cameron this weekend. Kansas City side, you're starting Charles, you're starting the Kansas City defense. I mean, I really don't think there's anybody else there that you're starting, and I think the Kansas City defense could have a nice game against a new quarterback. But, Matt, let's jump back to Jordan Cameron a little bit. You got him in a league. Are you worried about him? I mean, obviously you're starting him because you have to, but hearing those numbers, hearing what he's done the last couple of games and what that Chiefs defense does to tight ends, you got to be worried a little bit.
Yeah, I am. I mean, they haven't really played any superior talent at the tight end position other than Jason Witten all year. We'll run through some of the games they played the Giants. Nobody there I'm really excited about. They played Philadelphia, big deal. They played I told you Dallas. They played Jacksonville. They haven't played the talent of Jordan Cameron yet. So he's really involved in the passing game. We're talking about another quarterback now, the third one of the year. So who knows, what Campbell's going to be doing. But I'm still sticking with Cameron. But certainly, Marcus, I agree with you. I'm worried about him this week.
Yeah, I don't think you can't expect a big week out of him. I mean, no tight end has scored or reached 45 yards against the Chiefs all season. So, like you mentioned, Matt, it might be matchup-based, but whether it is or not, that Chiefs defense is a legitimate defense, and I think it'll be a good week to see how they react to an elite tight end who's going to get some targets. So we'll see. It's sort of a gamble, but this could be the week that breaks that mold with Cameron's talent.
Yeah, speaking of elite tight ends, Rob Gronkowski and the Patriots against the Dolphins this weekend in New England at Foxborough. Miami's allowing the second most fantasy points to opposing tight ends on the season. In fairness, like to Matt said on the other one, the Dolphins have faced really good tight ends. So they faced Graham, Gonzalez, and Cameron, but have since kind of stiffened up a little bit. So maybe second worst isn't allowing the second most points isn't as bad as it sounds considering the talent they've gone up against. But like we talked about on Tuesday, Gronkowski, 17 targets on just 51 snaps. I love him this week and the rest of the season. I think with a full workload, he is just going to be a beast. Rob, Matt, the Football Duke, and I all had Rob Gronkowski ranked number 1 this week. You had him all the way down at 4. You had him behind Julius Thomas, behind Jimmy Graham, and behind Vernon Davis. So tell us a little bit about why you don't like Gronkowski this week.
Takes a little longer to win my heart than 1 week against the Jets. I think, granted that Jets defense, it's a solid defense. My Vernon Davis call, that you might be hearing about that a little later in bowl calls, but that Jacksonville, that's strictly a matchup based. I need to see more than 1 week. Although I agree, the 1 week was a great week, but number 1, I'm not quite ready to commit to that. As much as you guys are, but for me, it's mostly matchup based. Assuming that Graham plays, and Thomas's matchup against Washington. But if he proves me wrong this week, he'll most likely be in that number 1 or number 2 spot next week. So.
Yeah, I mean, he's been winning my heart over for 3 years now, so it's taking
right.
a lot more than a week.
That's what I was gonna say. It's been more than a week. It's been more than a week. He's been pretty good for a while.
Yeah. He's been a little bit better than pretty good for a while.
And Graham, you mentioned I got a feeling he's not playing.
Yeah, I do too. I feel like if they're smart, they'll sit him out. We'll talk about Graham a little bit later though, so we'll get to that a little bit later. But Danny Amendola, been practicing all this week, says he's ready to play. So if you got him, he's probably going in your lineup. I noticed watching the Dolphins last week, Daniel Thomas actually got the start for them and had the first 3 touches of the game for any Dolphins player. So, Rob, I'm going to put you on the spot again. Help me out here. Lamar Miller, 12th. You have him as your 12th running back. What are you thinking? What is going on?
I mean, this you might hear about this again in my bowl calls. But yeah, this is I've believed in Miller since the beginning of the year, and I think this is a make or break week for him. Thomas, I mean, it was mentioned that it was mostly the scheme that they were playing, more so than a shift in starters or committee or whatever you want to believe. But I don't believe in this Pats defense, and I think talent's going to win out. And I do think Miller is the more talented runner, bottom line. Thomas, granted, had a great week. A lot of people talking about him this week, but I still believe in Miller. This is one of those ships that I'll probably ride, until it sinks. But I don't think it's sunk yet, where many people think it has. So I guess we'll see. I think this week is make or break week.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Lamar Miller is the better talent there. And he actually has been performing better than you'd expect. I think right now he's at 4.3 yards per carry for the season. So he's not performing poorly by any means. I don't think he's getting the workload you'd expect. But to be honest, I think there might be a changing the guard coming soon. I think, it's slowly shifting towards Daniel Thomas. I think this week will really tell us a lot in the carries, if it's more split or if it's more moving towards Daniel Thomas's way. But to what you said with the Patriots defense, no Will Fork, no Mayo. Whoever does get the carries in this game will be productive, that's for sure. Bills and Saints. C.J. Spiller is looking doubtful for this game. It's going to be a game-time decision. We talked about this a little bit on Tuesday's podcast and in my Mary Cheat dump this week, but averaging just 15 snaps a week for the last 3 weeks, you really can't trust him until he gets past this injury. And I'm really hoping, if I'm a Spiller owner, that he sits this game out and kind of gets healthy, because I think that's what really needs to happen. He needs to stop doing the Roddy White thing and trying to play through it and just re-aggravating it. So, I think Fred Jackson's going to be a nice high-end running back 2 this week against the Saints defense, allowing 5 yards per carry. I got to ask you guys a question, though, here real quick on the Bills' offense. Since E.J. Manuel went down with his injury, who do you think is the Bills' leading fantasy receiver? I know, it's kind of like being the tallest midget, I know.
Scott Chandler.
No.
Wide receiver.
Yeah, wide receiver.
I don't know.
It's obviously not Woods. That'd be too obvious.
Yeah, and it's not Stevie.
No. Been out.
Marquise Goodwin?
T.J. Graham.
Oh, yeah, okay. All right.
T.J. Graham. So in those really deep leagues, in those deep, Bills receiver only leagues, keep him on your radar. Just a guy to kind of watch out for. Saints side, you're starting all your Saints. Like we kind of said, Jimmy Graham dealing with his foot injury may not play this weekend. It's a 1 o'clock game, so you're going to know in the early inactive, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. Also, the Bills are the second best against tight ends. So if Graham's playing, you're playing him, that's for sure. But don't get cute and try to pick up Ben Watson if he's out and stick him in there. Bills are really good against the tight end. It's not going to work out for you. Just check out your waiver wire, after those inactives come out, and see who's available, and pick a good matchup or something like that.
Like Joseph Fourier.
Yeah, Joseph Fourier is a big boomer bust guy.
Get a touchdown.
Getting a lot of touchdowns, a lot of red zone looks.
Hey, did we talk about Spiller? Because I don't think he's playing this week either.
Yeah, he's listed as doubtful. Like I said, I don't think he's going to play this week, and I think the best thing for him is to probably sit.
Okay, all right. I missed that.
Giants-Eagles, rematch of Week 5. In that game, we saw Ruben Randle break out and kind of not look back. He had 96 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Nick's actually had a good game back in Week 5 as well. 9 catches for 142 yards. So I think they're going to continue that and kind of pass on the Eagles. Hopefully Victor Cruz kind of picks up what he had last time against them as well. Brandon Jacobs doubtful in this game, so it sounds like it's going to be more Peyton Hillis and to a lesser extent Michael Cox. I don't think you can trust either of those guys, can you?
I think Peyton Hillis is a fine start. Ton of buys this week. I think he's going to get a bulk of the work. He's going to get a few catches. He does work out of the backfield as slow as he is. And, he's going to be a goal line guy. So, yeah, I think he's a fine start this week.
Can't believe we're saying that.
I know.
It is really scary.
Fine by fine, I mean, like I said, ton of buys, flex guy.
Yeah.
And in your Giants only running back leagues?
No, honestly, I think he's a decent flex this week.
Yeah, talk about a situation that worked out in a guy's favor. This guy wasn't even on the team, three weeks ago, and here he is, fantasy relevant. It's strictly situational. I went through all your chips in that basket, but yeah, for this week, I actually agree with you, Matt, that he could be a decent flex. Yeah,
and the good news, by the way, guys, Hakeem Nicks, after sticking his thumb up his ass last week, there was some reports of a sore finger. I guess the X-rays came back negative. He's fine.
Nice. And just one more thing on Peyton Hillis. I think he's kind of pushing McGahee for the best off-the-couch and fantasy-relevant player of the year, apparently.
You think either one of them would run a sub 540?
No, not a maybe. Well, no, maybe not McGahee anymore. But going back to this a little bit more, the Eagles back in Week 5 when they played the Giants, that was actually the game where Michael Vick got hurt in. So Deshaun Jackson, 4 games this year, over 16 fantasy points. 3 games this year with 6 fantasy points or less. Last time in Week 5 had 7 for 132 and a touchdown. Which one do you guys think shows up? Is it boom or is it bust for Deshaun Jackson this week?
Here comes the boom.
I'd agree. He's he's going to have a good week. I got him ranked the highest out of all of us at number 4 overall for wide receivers, and it's going to be more of the same, especially with the same quarterback that was there in Week 5 with Vic. Marcus, you got him ranked the lowest at number 11. So my chance to call you out. Why do you have him so low?
Call it a gut call, but I think Vic falls in his ass in this game. Nothing more than a gut call. No real numbers to back that up. It's just total gut. For some reason, I just feel it's going to happen, and it's going to happen in this game. That's really all I got to that. Just total gut call on that one. Can't really bust me on a gut call, can you?
No, I can't.
All right, 49ers, Jaguars. 49ers go across the pond to face the Jags over in London. Last week we saw the return of the read option for the 49ers and Colin Kaepernick. Aside from Week 1, last week may have been Kaepernick's best week this year. Finished with the second highest completion percentage of the year, the most passing yards besides that Week 1, and the highest yards per attempt. I think they're going to, stick with it again this week, and Kaepernick's going to tear apart the terrible Jaguars team for another top 10 fantasy day. If you had to guess how many completions per game Kaepernick is averaging since that Week 1 blow-up game, how many do you think he has?
13.
I'd say 9.
13. 13 average completions a game.
Wow. I'm so good at that. I love it. It's my favorite thing.
When you sit down and think about that, that's amazing. 13 completions he's averaging a game. That's real scary, real scary. Frank Gore, last 5 games, he's had over 10 fantasy points, averaging 21.5 carries a game over the last 4 games. Has a cake matchup against the Jaguars, who are allowing the third most fantasy points to opposing running backs. Do you think Kendall Hunter is going to get some work in this game? Do you think they're going to blow it wide open and decide, hey, we need Gore for the playoffs. He's a little bit older. He's been getting a lot of carries. Let's take him out a little early, get Kendall Hunter some work. Or do you think it's just going to be all Gore all the time, huge day for him?
So I think it's definitely going to be a Kendall Hunter fourth quarter. You know what I mean? They're going to handle no problem. This game's going to be handled, I think, quickly. So Kendall will start getting mixed in second half quite a bit, I think, and come fourth quarter, you probably won't see Frank Gore if the game goes as I and most people think it would go. That's just what we've seen too this season. That's how it works for them.
Yeah, and we've heard that the past few seasons with Gore that they want to start resting him as the season goes on, and I think it'll be the same case here. Obviously Gore's going to get his. You start him and you hope he finds the end zone and gets the amount of work he's been getting, but I do think you have to temper your expectations a little bit. He's an older running back in the league, but I think he's still going to be productive. You obviously are starting him in this game, but Hunter, who the question's really about, might be worth a flex play in deeper leagues, but I still think until you see more of a shift to Hunter, I don't think you can really start him with confidence.
Yeah, I don't think you can really trust him either in this game. I just think this might be one where he might surprise people and get a lot of work. So maybe in those daily fantasy leagues where you can pick him up cheap in a salary cap situation, you might be a good guy to put in there and hope for the best. Jaguars side, real quick, couple of injury issues. Blackman sat out today's practice due to his hamstring, but is probable. Cecil Shorts, questionable with a sprained SC joint, but looks like he'll play as well. MJD, he's not hurt, but he's just a bum. God. With a week full of buys, you probably don't have any better option, and he is averaging 9 fantasy points per game the last 3 weeks. So I mean, you're going to stick him in there. Not really much else to talk about on the Jaguars side. Like I said, both receivers banged up, but both are playing. Jets-Bengals, we had a lot of questions about Giovanni Bernard and starting him this week against a great, I'm going to say great, air quotations, Jets run defense. They are the 6th best against running backs in fantasy right now. They haven't allowed a 100-yard rusher all year, but they've also allowed 20 fantasy points per week the last 3 weeks to running backs. So you can, at least the last couple weeks, they're kind of letting you run on them a little bit more. Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, and Gio, I think they're both going to have some value in this game, more so Gio. What do you guys think? Out of the two, which one has more fantasy points this weekend, and are you starting both of them?
I'm starting.
Not everybody all at once now. Don't rush all over the Gio and Ben Jarvis talk.
Hey, this is a big decision here. You got 2 running backs that are, still people at this point in the season thought Gio would have taken it over, but he hasn't 100% taken it over. He's the better back, no doubt, and has the higher upside, but Ben Jarvis is still there. He's still present. I think for me, I obviously think Gio is going to get, I think 9 out of 10 people will tell you Gio is going to get more. But I actually believe in this Jets run defense. I think it's a bad week to start Gio coming off that week against Detroit where he only got 7 carries. But that's just me. What do you think, Matt?
Rob, I just saw your secretary walk behind you.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know. Might have had a phone call, maybe a client. I don't know, something like that. But, anyways, Gio, I think he's one of those kind of talents that, nobody's matchup proof, period. But he's a guy that needs one play. You know what I mean? Like, Ben Jarvis is the kind of guy that's not going to do anything but bang you 5 yards at a time, on a good day for him. So I like Gio just fine. Certainly not as excited as it would be with a better matchup. The Jets do have a solid run defense, but he's a guy that takes one play sometimes, and he does get the ball out of the backfield, so he can do it at any time.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Gio's definitely the bigger play guy, whereas Green Ellis is more that volume play guy. Both, I think, like I said, are going to be better than expected. I couldn't believe the number of questions, the start-sit questions, and I'm sure we'll have more this Sunday, but the number of people are saying, would you sit these guys against the Jets? And with 6 teams on a bye, you're starting both of these guys. Antonio Cromartie reportedly will shadow A.J. Green all over the field. You got Green, you're starting him, but given the way Dalton's been playing, I think you got to give a little bit of a bump to Tyler Eifert and Mohamed Sanu. They might get a little bit more work in this game with Cromartie following Green all around the field. Matt, I got to ask you, 6 fantasy points combined the last 3 weeks for Stephen Hill. Rest of the season, Stephen Hill or his teammate Jeremy Curley?
I think it's Jeremy Curley. Since Antonio Holmes went out, he's been averaging over 7 targets per game. He had a good week last week. Unfortunately, none of us ranked him. That was, I think, a little bit of a miscue by our part, but I've got Stephen Hill in the home league, the 12 team, because I still see things, like the bomb that Geno just missed on, the offensive pass interference where he scored a touchdown. The big plays can be there for this guy. I love the talent, Marcus, so I'm still holding on to him, but I got Curley.
Yeah, I'd say for me it's Curley too. He's definitely getting a lot more of the work. Stephen Hill, much bigger upside. He's going to be in dynasty leagues. He's a guy you want to get now. While his value is still lower than what it was earlier in the season, but for this year, I think it's Curley, especially in PPR leagues. Steelers Raiders, not really a whole lot of fantasy relevance here in this game. I mean, you're starting your obvious people. Your McFadden's, your Antonio Browns, Le'Veon Bell's, but I mean, let's talk maybe a little bit for a second about Denarius Moore. I think 4 out of the last 5 games he's had a touchdown when playing with Terrell Pryor. I think, Rob, you brought up a good point a little bit earlier before the podcast that the Steelers haven't allowed a touchdown to the number 1 receiver on the opposing team yet this year. So what are you guys' expectations for Denarius Moore?
I think it's something where, you have a situation where the guy has been playing really well. He's a guy that's really been creeping up the rankings all season long. But you're coming into a matchup where certainly he's a talented guy, but he's going up against a guy like Taylor who has been having a very good season. And the numbers you mentioned earlier aren't a fluke. So I think this is one of those weeks where I'll look to other guys. It's tough, though. Who do you have on your team? And I got a feeling you probably have someone that's at his level that you could play over him this week, because he's not a guy you had to get in the second, third, fourth, fifth round. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm torn this week because Daenerys has scored in 3 straight games with Pryor, 5 of their last 6 together, so he's obviously a top target of Pryor's, but I also believe in that Steelers defense who shut down number ones all season long. That's why one of my bold predictions last week was Torrey Smith not topping 30 yards. I was 38 yards off from that, and I think it's more the same this week. So for me this week, I believe in them both. But for this week, I believe in the Steelers D more than Daenerys Moore. I would knock him down a few notches this week in my rankings.
Yeah, and another quick note, just like I said, McFadden back for this game. Hopefully she'll get the full workload. He was back obviously right before the bye week, but I think this is the week he finally gets that full workload again. Steelers not the best as far as a run D goes, so it should be interesting to see what he does this weekend. Redskins, Broncos. Redskins obviously are going to play catch-up probably this entire game, as every team has done this year against the Broncos. Being that Alfred Morris basically isn't a high threat to catch the ball out of the backfield like Halou is, are you guys worried about him this week? I have Morris ranked the lowest at 11. Rob, you have him at 7. Matt, you have him at 9. So you guys aren't too far off for me. But, Halou I have at 26, which is much further ahead than you guys who had him at both at 33. I could see this game as being more of a Roy Halou game, and Halou having maybe 15 touches in this game as opposed to the 10 to 12 he's been getting, just because the way this game is going to go? Or do you think they're going to slow it down and kind of just say, hey, let's slow the game down, let's pound it with Alfred Morris, let's keep the tempo slow and keep the game a little bit closer, because we can't compete with them when it comes to offenses?
Yeah, that's what they're going to try to do, I think, but how long is that going to work? The first 3 and out, and Peyton just marches right down the field again. So I think there's another situation here where the roles are completely clear what they do. I think Alfred Morris has like 4 catches in his career, but he's going to get his carries. He always does. He hasn't had less than 13 this year, 12 this year, so I think he's still going to get his work, but yeah, Halou is going to be very involved, and I think he's going to have a good week. 33 is the highest I've had him all week, and I don't disagree with you having him as high as you did either.
Yeah, I mean, what are the chances Matt and I rank the same number 33 running back? It's not like we're playing that, but I'm not overreacting to it. I think a lot of people are overreacting to it. I mean, Morris still looked good. I mean, if Morris looked horrible and Halou got 3 touchdowns, I might have this a little closer together. But Morris still had a respectable game, and the touchdowns that Halou scored and the plays that he were in on, they were hurry up, they were passing down. A lot of what he did it made sense. I wasn't like, where's Morris? I knew that Halou was made sense with where they were. So for me, I still believe in Morris. I think he might be a buy low if the owner's freaking out about Halou. Halou's not going to score 3 touchdowns every week, so don't worry about it. It's a 1-week thing. Morris is going to be back to himself this week against the Broncos, so don't overreact.
Yeah, and Alfred Morris, too, on the season, averaging over 5 yards per carry. Even last week, averaged over 5 yards per carry in that matchup. So, you're not worried about Morris. He is producing. It's not a point of him not producing that they're putting Roy Halou in there. It's just, like you said, it's more situational based. Real quick, Jordan Reed has caught 87% of his targets this year. That leads all qualifying tight ends and wide receivers. Since the Redskins bye week, Reed is actually second among tight ends in fantasy points. So really getting it done. If Rob's nodding his head because he's excited about the game.
Yeah. he's like, I told you so, you bitches.
He's just waiting to say something about it. But we're not going to get into Jordan Reed too much in this podcast. If he's still out there in your waiver wire, he shouldn't be. Go pick him up and hold on to him. He's a top 10 tight end rest of the season. Broncos side, you're starting all your Broncos. I mean, I think we say this every week. there's almost no sense in going over the fantasy relevant of the Broncos. But one quick thing I wanted to point out, Eric Decker, number 4 in standard scoring and number 2 in PPR scoring since week 2. Redskins 5th worst against opposing wide receivers. So I'll have a bold prediction a little bit later about Eric Decker, but just a guy that I think is going to have a great, great week this week. Falcons-Cardinals, Roddy White already ruled out in this game. Steven Jackson probable, and it sounds like he is obviously going to go. Rob, you and I have Steven Jackson you have Steven Jackson at number 26. Matt and I both have him inside our top 15. Tell us, why are you so down on Steven Jackson in this game? I mean, you have him behind guys like Michael James, who played last night, and even Bryce Brown. You have him below Bryce Brown. Tell us a little bit about the Steven Jackson hate.
My hate is all about the uncertainty. I mean, you like when they plan for a return, they know the week, the guy's practicing all week, he's seeing all the reports are great. Steven Jackson, I still think, is going to be hindered this week. He's not going to have a full workload. If I was rating him at a full workload, yes, I'd have him in my top 15. But my reason for bumping him down is because I think it's more going to be a committee this week. I think we're going to see. I think Rodgers will be relevant this week still. But for me, it was mostly the uncertainty around the injury as to why I put him as low as I did.
All right. Speaking of guys being out, Mendenhall is doubtful for this game. Andre Ellington already named the starter. What do you guys expect for Ellington here? Do you think, touch-wise, 15 touches, 18 touches, or do you think they just set him loose and give him over 20 touches in this game?
I think it's still 15 touches. They want to be careful with him. They've talked about that. He's not the biggest guy. You may see maybe we'll see a little bit of Ryan Williams out there running around this game. I would like to see that. I hope it's not more Alfonso Smith. But I think 15's right on.
Do you think this is the week that he kind of takes the job and runs with it, or do you think he kind of fumbles himself along the way, kind of just?
No, I don't think Mendenhall's ever going to go away. I think he's going to be the guy that gets the short yard work. He's going to be the Mike Tolbert, even if he does lose the starting job. Like a bump, but not in a bump. Not a bump to the top 10 level. That's not there for me.
Yeah. Falcons 3rd worst against wide receivers this year. Over or under 10 fantasy points for Larry Fitzgerald this week, a guy that's really been struggling all year long, early up and down.
I'm going over. I think Palmer is a lot of people talking about him this week against this Falcons defense that is allowing multiple touchdowns almost every game to quarterbacks, and Palmer, who is an underperforming quarterback. This is one of those battles where one side's going to come out better than they started. It's either going to be the Falcons D or it's going to be Palmer in that offense. But I do think Palmer comes out on the plus side in this, and I think as a result, Fitzgerald tops 10 fantasy points. But with that said, I don't feel comfortable with Fitzgerald until he's out there healthy week after week, performing like we know he can.
Yeah, I think he's going to be over. I do like the matchup for them this week. I think he's probably going to be in that 15 range. I know the magic number I heard was 9 targets. He scores in double digits, and I think that's going to be easily attainable this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me with Larry Fitzgerald is, I'm taking the over as well, but in order for him to get the over, he needs to catch a touchdown. Otherwise, I don't see him going over 100 yards just because the way he's been playing, the way Palmer's been playing. He's going to need that touchdown to boost him over that 10 fantasy points. I could see him having a 7-catch for 85-yard day, but getting that touchdown that kind of puts him over that bump of 10 fantasy points. Packers-Vikings. Matt, I mean, your team going back to Christian Ponder, going back to the well, kind of completing the circle of life there and starting back from where you guys came. And Ponder's 3 games this year, averaging only 230 passing yards a game. In those 3 games combined, only has 2 touchdowns but 7 turnovers. It is not looking good for your Vikings, is it? I mean, As a Vikings fan, Matt, which quarterback do you prefer?
I have no idea.
They're all that bad, aren't they?
Hey, how about this, though? Christian Ponder, this is the biggest game of his life, right? This is the biggest game of his life. And last time he played in a big game, he had 3 touchdowns against the Packers, set a career record over 300 yards passing to get him into the playoffs. So we'll see what happens here. It's a good matchup for him, and I think Adrian's ready to go. He's had 2 bad games in a row, and that's not what Adrian Peterson does. So he's going to lose. That's just the Viking fan in me talking, but those are things I could see.
You know what's an even crazier thing to think about as a Vikings fan? This is your 3rd different quarterback in 3 games.
Yeah.
That's scary. That is real scary. James Jones, doubtful in this game, so we're going to see more of Jarrett Boykin and Jordy Nelson. I think both of them will have pretty good fantasy days, but I think Eddie Lacy will actually have the best day out of all of them. Vikings allowing the 2nd most fantasy points to running backs, and I think they're going to lean on him pretty heavy once they get up a few touchdowns in this game. Could see a lot of running from Eddie Lacy.
And I wonder, Marcus, I wonder what our ratings are in Minnesota. Between our shit on Matt and his Vikings segment we have every week and our bashing of the Vikings quarterbacks, either they're with us because they believe in you, Matt, or they're quick.
It's the low-hanging fruit is what it is. I mean, how can you not bash the Vikings and their quarterback? I mean, it's just too easy not to pass up. Seahawks and Rams. Okay, so did you obviously you guys heard about the Rams reaching out for Brett Favre. I mean, if you're Tim Tebow and Vince Young, guys like that, and you're hearing that guys like Brett Favre are getting a call before you got to just be shaking your head. You just got to be like, what is going on? I mean, calling Brett Favre out of retirement, that is just that's something only the Vikings would do.
Yeah, I've seen him in those commercials. What are they? Lee? Is that who he's in? Playing football in the yard. He's got a little tummy going on. That's funny. They decided to call him.
Well, he's wearing those Levi's. He's not even.
Yeah, I think they're Lee.
Oh yeah, Lee.
Yeah.
Well, I searched for him in ESPN. He's not even in the system yet. That's how real they treated this threat of Brett Favre coming back. He's not.
Matt, just for you, Matt. I just Googled Brett Favre muffin top. And you don't want to see the stuff that's come up.
No, I don't.
But in all seriousness, this is going to be Kellen Clemens' first start since 2011. Actually started with the Rams 3 games back in 2011. What do you expect out of Clemens and the Rams in this game? I personally think they're going to lean on Zach Stacy quite a bit. Maybe see a little bit more of Darryl Richardson than we've seen these last couple weeks, too.
I think they're going to run Stacy quite a bit. I mean, nothing is going to work for them. This is going to be a really ugly game. Any one of those wide receivers we talked about it last podcast, even any of the tight ends, please do not play them. Stacy's the only one that I'd put in there, but it's going to be tough for him considering there's nothing else there.
Yeah, I mean, Seahawks defense. Is there any worse team you could have your first start against? I mean, Clemens is going to fall on his face. Those wideouts are going to fall on their face. It's not going to be pretty. Stacy, they're going to be loading the box, and I think Stacy, who's not even a great runner, is going to have a mediocre day at best. Obviously, the opportunity is going to be there, but like you said, I'm not starting any of these guys. If I'm watching this game or looking back on it, the only thing I'm looking at is targets and seeing if there's any connection between Clemens and hopefully Tavon Austin, who is available in a lot more leagues now than he was at the beginning of the year. But I'm just watching those targets more than the production. I wouldn't start any of these Rams wideouts.
Actually, you know what? Now that you bring it up, what may be surprising, because you will start to see a connection between Clemens and some receiver on the Rams. What about Jared Cook? Left for dead Jared Cook? That could be something interesting to watch there. Just to see if he uses the tight end as a security blanket. But definitely going to be interesting to see who he targets and who he favors and who's going to be the big pickup next week once you see who he's going to go to for the rest of the season. A couple of quick names here I just wanted to point out. A couple of running backs, Noshawn Moreno, Trent Richardson, and D'Angelo Williams. What do all these running backs have in common besides Matt's crazy man love?
They all. No, I don't know.
Russell Wilson has more rushing yards than them in each of their last 4 games.
Jeez.
So in the last 4 games, Russell Wilson running for more yards than all 3 of those running backs, who, even as bad as somebody like Trent Richardson has been, they're probably all still top 20 in fantasy points this year. So that really says something about Russell Wilson, his running lately. I think he's firmly back in top 10 territory, and obviously a must-start against a terrible Rams defense. But let's jump into some bold predictions now. I'm going to save mine till the end this time, since we always start off with mine. So, Rob, what do you got for bold predictions?
So my bold predictions, I'm going to stay on the negative train with a couple of my bold predictions here. We mentioned him a little bit and how we thought he would do this week. Gio Bernard, he hasn't rushed for a touchdown in 4 straight games and has not rushed for 30 yards in either of the 2 sort of big passing games the Bengals had in Week 6 and 7. So for me, I think Gio Bernard doesn't top, I'm going to say 30 yards rushing and 30 yards passing. So whatever that equates to in your leagues, I don't think he hits that. Another bold prediction on the negative side, and it might not be that bold because I know a lot of people don't believe in him, but Harry Douglas caught all 6 of his targets. That's not going to happen. He only got 6 targets. I don't think he is a viable option at this point.
Didn't he have 7 catches last week?
Yeah, he had 7 targets.
Did he? 7 catches?
Yeah, he caught every target.
Okay, I knew he caught every target. Bottom line, he's not being targeted in the double digits, and he's not going to catch every target the rest of the way. So for me, I think Gonzalez is going to get more involved. Harry Douglas might have Patrick Peterson on him this week. I don't like the matchup. So for me, I think Harry Douglas is held to 3 catches, 30 yards. Again, I'm stuck on that 30 number, but yeah, I don't believe in Harry Douglas. Lastly, I think Carson Palmer, who has thrown 2 or more interceptions in 5 straight games. So this is a bold prediction. I think he doesn't throw an interception. And I think he actually throws minimally 2 touchdowns against that favorable matchup. So not necessarily a bold prediction depending on who you listen to, because a lot of people, like I mentioned, are high on Palmer this week. But I think he throws no interceptions, 2 touchdowns, and is a great bye-week fill-in for someone looking for a quarterback this week.
The way you were talking earlier, I thought you were going to have a Lamar Miller one. No?
I have several bold predictions. I narrow it down to 3. But.
Well, I was hoping you were going to say that one because it would have been cool. My bold prediction, the first one, is Daniel Thomas is going to outgain, I think 90 yards and a touchdown or so, the Patriots this week, and outtouch Miller, outgain Miller. The reason I say that is, what do they do best? What does he do best between the tackles? He's 6'1", 235. Where are the Patriots hurting this week? Up the middle. I like Daniel Thomas this week to have a pretty good game, and like I said, outproduce Miller. I think Roy Halou has a big week. Marcus kind of swayed me on that, and I'd move him up my rankings a little bit. I think he's going to be involved. A lot of hurry-up offense going on. I think he's going to be involved out of the backfield. They're going to need some big plays to keep up with this Denver team. I think he has 120 total yards, and he has a touchdown, and he gets 15 touches this week. Something like 10 rushes, 11 rushes, 4 or 5 catches. And then I think Golden Tate's going to have a good week. 100 yards and a touchdown. The Rams have let up a touchdown to the number 1 wide receiver every single game this year except for when they played Houston. And I'd say Golden's probably number 1 there, so I like him this week.
All right. I got a couple myself, obviously. I talked about Eric Decker a little bit earlier. I'm going to say he finishes the number 1 fantasy wide receiver this week, that he's going to top everybody else. Like I said, performing as a top 5 wide receiver so far, since week 2, and really favorable matchup. I think he gets a lot of work there. Another one, a guy that I'm actually going up against this week, and I really hate to say this, but I'm all aboard the Rob Gronkowski, train here, and I say 3 touchdowns in this game and over 100 yards receiving. So really, really big fantasy day for Rob Gronkowski. And then finally, Matt, I got a Vikings prediction for you. Matt Castle comes back into the game in the third quarter and leads them to victory. What do you think of that?
Oh! I appreciate it. Thank you. Hey, maybe we're catching some more Minnesota fans.
It's the boldest prediction of them all right there.
I think it is. I think that for some reason I have the feeling they keep it actually close in this game, and then something happens where they put Castle in, and Castle kind of leads them on a late charge.
Yep, Peterson is going to run all over them.
But I don't know. Really bold one out there. I just wanted to throw out there. But make sure to follow all of us on Twitter. Me at Marcus Katkin, Matt at Matt Dugal, and Rob at R Drouin. And keep sending your questions to #BlindsidePod or blindside@blindsidefootball.com. As you know, every Sunday, Matt, Rob, and I live tweeting all of your start-sit questions from Sunday from noon till 1 using #AskBlindside. And then finally, Andrew, we got a couple questions this week. Andrew Friedman at AFriedman15 asks, James Jones or MJD and half-point PPR?
Easy. James Jones probably is not playing.
Yeah, that makes it pretty easy for me.
Let's
just say if they are both playing, which one are you going with there, Matt?
MJD, because he's that hurt. They don't think he's going to play now. If he has a miraculous recovery, he plays. No, I'm saying even if he has a miraculous recovery and he does play, I don't think he's in very good shape. So,
yeah,
MJD.
I'd agree.
All right. Rodney Birch at Rod the Hod asks, should I drop Darius Hayward-Bay or Keenan Allen for Percy Harvin?
DHB, baby.
Yeah,
get Percy on your team.
I said, absolutely, and for me too, it's Darius Hayward-Bay. Seems like
Hurry up. So you told him already. Good.
Well, with that said, though, it's kind of interesting with Wayne out.
But come on.
I mean, yeah, I definitely do it, but
stop it.
It'll be interesting.
Stop
more upside there. We're all going with DHB for Harvin. Finally, another Harvin question from T-Lons at Co41 on Twitter. Is it too early to trade DeMarco Murray for Percy Harvin? I say absolutely. I think if you make that trade now, you're selling low on DeMarco Murray and you're buying high on Percy Harvin.
Agreed.
Wait, so what if they were both healthy?
That's not the question. The question.
No. Listen, because guess what? They're both possibly going to play this weekend. So you're acting like, no, DeMarco's great. He's healthy, and Percy's hurt. No, they're both in a similar situation. I think Percy's back by week 9. Mm-hmm. So, depends on what your roster is, my friend. Send me the question with your team, and I'll tell you the right answer.
Yeah, there you go, guys. If you really want the answers to all the right questions, just send them directly to Matt. Skip all this whole podcast nonsense. Just go right to the source. He knows his stuff, and go.
Boom shakalaka.
But that does it for this week, guys. You guys got anything else you wanted to add?
No, that's all. Good luck this week, guys.
See ya.
All right, guys. We'll see you on Sunday. Make sure to tweet us #AskBlindside.
Yo, check it. It's my time. I'm rapping about Blindside Fantasy Football Podcast in this rhyme because they got me the inside scoop on Adrian Peterson. Yeah, he's that dude on Cam Newton. Yeah, they give me the news more on Megatron Calvin Johnson if I stay tuned on all quarterbacks. RG3 happens to be the fastest QB in the league. In fact, Colin Kaepernick is rider QB for them 49ers. It ain't hard to see. Some awesome people hosting Marcus Katkin and Matt Dugal. You should be joining. Skinny or fat, short or tall, anyone can tune in to Blindside Football. Have a try, dude. Listen on iTunes or blindsidefootball.com too.